great questions and comments. I wanted to come back to something I mentioned in my speech, which was the conversation I had with Marlon Santi from Konai. He was saying, and we've heard this from many people inside the Bella Center, that they have no hope of a deal that will actually meet the climate crisis. I said, well, where do you have hope? And he said, I have hope in the 16th. I think we're building something very powerful. So there are definitely going to be people walking out. It's clear that a lot of Indigenous delegates are very excited about this because they have been so disrespected inside the Bella Center. The Bella, it's a very, very strange place. And, you know, I'm Canadian, and my country is really the climate criminal of all climate criminals. The United States did not sign the Kyoto Protocol. So they haven't been breaking the law all these years that they have been increasing emissions. They didn't sign onto the law. Canada signed the law, and in the period that we were supposed to be reducing emissions, we increased emissions by 26%. Why? Because of something called the tar sands, which is a crime against humanity in my country. It is a process of turning solid mass into liquid petroleum, and in order to do it, you have to boil the earth. It takes 3 times as much fossil fuel energy to create a barrel of oil out of the tar than it does if you were drilling for oil in Saudi Arabia, for instance. This, the United States calls energy security, because it's coming from a friendly country and not from a country that they are racist against. So what's crazy is that the tar sands is not even on the agenda. So, you know, we have the potential for a lot of Canadian young people, Indigenous people from Canada, to come out and say, if we are serious about stopping this crisis, then we need to stop the tar sands. We need to leave the tar in the land. And we're going to hear all kinds of solutions like that. And my concern is, we all know that a fight with the cops is capable of ending all other conversations. And I think there is an opportunity. There is actually a lot of hope inside the Bella Center that the 16th really can be a people's assembly, that it can show how crazy this discussion is. You know, inside the Bella Center, they have seminars going on all day about adapting to climate change, okay? So you go to these seminars, and it's about how the clever people in Bangladesh are adapting to climate change by building boats, okay? But we're not talking about the real adaptation to climate change, which is us changing our behavior, okay? And this is what we have a chance to show the world, with the world media, what an actual climate summit should look like. There are a lot of people who want to join with us, but it's a precarious situation. It's really a precarious situation. It's nothing like Seattle. There are government delegations that are thinking about joining you. If this turns into a riot, it's going to be a riot. We know this story. I'm not saying it's not an interesting story, but it is what it is. It's only one story. It will turn into that. So I understand the question about how do we take care of each other, but I disagree that that means fighting the cops. I think if we're serious... And let me tell you, never in my life have I ever said that before. No, I have never condemned people's tactics. I understand the rage. I don't do this. I'm doing it now because I believe that there is something very, very important going on, a lot of courage being shown in that center, and people need the support. And let me tell you, they're not fighting for a good deal. Bolivia's not fighting for a good deal. Africa's not fighting for a good deal. They're trying to stop a disastrous deal from being imposed on them. And this is where you come in. Because, you know, the United Nations launched this campaign, seal the deal, seal the deal, seal the deal. And then all of these big NGOs like Oxfam and Greenpeace went tick, 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 tick. They're running around, tick, 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 seal the deal, as if the only thing that matters is signing an agreement. This is insane. You can sign an agreement that is much worse than we currently have. And that's why we need to highlight what a real deal would look like, what real solutions would look like. The stakes are very, very high. When we're talking about creating this huge carbon market and creating agreements that allow multinational corporations to take over forests and push indigenous people off their lands. Do you know what the indigenous delegation all week has been fighting like crazy to get the word consent into the text of that agreement so that indigenous people have to be asked for their consent before they're kicked off their land, and they have lost that fight. That's why they're going to be walking out. We need to hear this. People need to understand that. They said, we'll put it in the preamble, but the preamble isn't legally binding. It's not legally binding. So the stakes are very, very high. I spoke to a negotiator yesterday. This is somebody very close to the G77, maybe the most influential person, in my opinion, in there. And he said, when we look at the size of the carbon market, what Tadzio was talking about, that multi-trillion-dollar market that all of these corporations are salivating over, and we compare that to the $10 billion, the disgraceful $10 billion that the rich countries are offering to developing countries. He said, and I don't know if all of you will understand this reference, he said, it's beads and blankets for Manhattan. Beads and blankets, this is the final colonial pillage, and we have a responsibility to stop it. It isn't just about saying this is all nonsense. It's about stopping it from getting worse. We have that responsibility. Let me think. They said I had a little bit of time, so let me think if...
What do you suggest is the tactic?
Well, I think it's...
The entrance and allow them...
I don't know exactly what the tactics should be, but I think, the reason why I am standing with Reclaim Power is because it clearly says that people will not escalate, even if attacked by the cops. We can't control the cops, but we can control our own behavior. It's not, these are going to be acts of civil disobedience. There are going to be strategies. You've got some incredible organizers in your midst, and there are going to be strategies for dealing with police violence. But I think people should be very clear that anybody who escalates is not with us. Is not with us. Because people are going to be taking tremendous risks when they come out. I know a lot of people are upset about this, about me saying this, but I've been recruiting all week for this, and I've been recruiting for it based on the stated principles that are there, and I think we have a responsibility to defend them. Like I said, I have never said this before. I believe this is an important, historic discussion. The Global South has been trying to have an international global accounting of who owes who is a debtor and who is a creditor. The Third World nationalist movements put it on the agenda, the Pan-African movements of the 1950s and 60s, and that conversation was interrupted with tremendous violence of coups d'etats, and it was pushed off the agenda and it was replaced with neoliberalism and debt bondage. In 2001, there was a meeting in South Africa about racism, and the Global South came to that meeting and said, we want to talk about the debts that are owed to the Global South from colonialism and slavery. You are the debtors and we are the creditors. And that meeting took place on September the 9th, 2001. On September 11th, that conversation ended dramatically. And here, once again, because this is the conversation that can never be stopped, it will emerge and emerge and emerge because it's the truth. We are the debtors. They are the creditors. This has the possibility to carry with it a massive transfer of wealth from north to south, a possibility of healing the deep, deep inequalities that carve up our world. This is not nothing that is happening in the Bella Center. It's not nothing when the head of the G77 says $10 billion is not enough to buy the coffins to bury us. Do you think that's more important than breaking a window? I don't. I'm sorry, I don't.